Hello. How are you doing? So, I was perusing the European Union website, as we all do. Not again, especially over here in America. It's one of our favorite websites, the European-Union.europa.eu. God, that couldn't be on any more of a European web address, could it? European-Union.europa.eu. That's beautiful. If you're a European, patriot, that is a beautiful web address. Anyway, it's one of the most popular websites over here, guys. And I saw celebrating 40 years of Schengen, which sounds Chinese. And I wanted to know what that was. The Schengen area explained. Canubis. Check him out, link down below.
When it comes to international borders, for most countries, they are hard barriers separating people, cultures, money, languages, driving sides, and more, not to mention all the special documentation you will need just to cross that line. However, in Europe, something somewhat mind-blowing has been established. Borders that you can just stroll right across.
Freedom of movement.
What? How? Yep, those exist.
You know, from what I hear of ages past, that actually was how most of the world used to be, or at least over here in America. You used to just be able to drive to Mexico without some dude harassing you, invading your privacy, and drive on back. It sounds crazy to me, but apparently that's how the world was.
This video
Same with Canada.
was brought to you in part by Atlas En Route, and from generous support on Patreon from viewers like you. Thank you. This such freedom of travel is essentially unique to most but not all of the countries of the European Union.
So which ones don't participate?
France, Germany, Benelux, Italy, Spain, and several others have agreed to essentially abolish the borders between them.
So with Brexit, didn't they agree to retain some of that freedom of movement?
And let people move around as they please.
I mean, London would be a nightmare if people who commuted there had to go through, the border every single time.
This is an area called the Schengen area.
Is Andorra not participating? It's gray. That's Andorra, isn't it? Shout out to Andorra. Hell yeah, it is. Do they not participate in the freedom of movement?
And it can be somewhat mind-blowing to outsiders, and is also the reason why I have so many Europeans in the
And yes, that look I just gave the camera, that was yeah, I'm an American and I knew that was Andorra. You weren't expecting that, huh?
Comments in my passports video bragging about visiting 20 countries without a passport. How is this possible? Well, it is doubtful that this would be possible in any random collection of nations, but the EU is different, because one of the most basic agreements of being an EU member nation is freedom of movement. If you are a citizen of an EU member state, you're basically by extension an EU citizen, which means that Germans can move to Spain, Portuguese can work in the Netherlands, and Brits can of course insert Brexit joke here.
Wait, you can just move there?
With this in mind,
Kind of like, a lot of this reminds me of American states, which of course, a lot of your countries have states as well. I get that, I know that, okay? But our country is so big that the states are, I feel like they seem a little bit more significant. Sorry if that's mean or something, or stupid. I don't know. It just seems like the states are very well-defined borders. You know when you're going to a new state and it's a long drive, you don't just show up, oh, I'm in a new state. With that said, there's no border patrolman harassing you, asking you what your middle name is or when your dog died or anything like that.
this would explain how the visa policy of the area works. Since people, including visiting foreigners, can freely move into any country they want to, no Schengen area country has their own visa policy. Instead, the countries of the Schengen area all have to agree on one single collective visa policy.
Oh, so do you actually all have the same passport?
Thus,
no, a visa is different than a passport. What am I talking about?
the Schengen area may seem to resemble one single country on visa policy maps. As for these intents and purposes, it kind of sort of is. After all, crossing from Spain into France is logistically just like crossing from Oregon into California. Of course, now's the time for me to clarify the at least hopefully obvious, which is that, yes, you do still need a passport to get into or out of the Schengen area. So if you
But you don't need a passport just traveling around in the Schengen area.
fly from London to Berlin, you will still be stopped and questioned by immigration personnel, and if they see you fit to enter, they will give you their local version of the Schengen stamp.
Okay.
Assuming you're from one of the countries in green. The Schengen local version of the Schengen stamp.
I am.
Assuming you're from one of the countries in green.
Womp. No visa need stamp. Damn.
The Schengen area consists of 22 of the 28 member states of the EU, the exceptions being the UK and Ireland, who have a permanent opt-out as they argue the islands are different, and Croatia, Romania, Bulgaria, and Cyprus, as they basically just haven't gotten around to it yet. However, there are actually 26 nations participating in Schengen, as 4 non-EU nations, Iceland, Norway, Switzerland, and Liechtenstein, have also decided to hop on, as well as Monaco, San Marino, and Vatican City, who aren't formally part of this agreement, but at the same time, come on. Somewhat interestingly though, Croatia, Romania, Bulgaria, and Cyprus, despite not currently being in the Schengen area, are obliged to follow the same visa policy for foreign nationals as the other states, as they don't have opt-outs and are of course obligated to join sometime in the future.
Never mind. I was going to say something so stupid. Just when he blurs it out like this, I never noticed how this looks. When you... Yeah. Let's move on.
It should be noted, however, that while Norway, Iceland, and Liechtenstein are part of the European Economic Area, and thus their citizens can live and work in the EU and vice versa, this is not the same with Switzerland and the microstates. Thus, non-Swiss can visit but not live in Switzerland. Switzerland, Norway, and Iceland are also not part of the European Customs Union, which means that, crossing the German-Swiss border, you won't be stopped for immigration purposes, but you will likely have to declare any regulated goods. Weirdly, this is actually the reverse with some non-Schengen states, notably the UK and Turkey. Remember, customs and immigration are different things. Immigration is where you get your passport stamped, and customs is where you declare goods. For a good
So you still have to go through customs.
rule of thumb, immigration is for people, and customs is for what the people are bringing with them. Also, perhaps it should be noted that Andorra does not participate in Schengen despite its small size. The Schengen Agreement was established on the 14th of June 1985 in the Luxembourgish town of Schengen, which, judging from this video script, was really put on the map by this agreement, with the first 5 member states being Germany, France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg.
You know, I just noticed that the guy making this sounds American. I'm impressed, fellow American.
This bloc has since grown, now encompassing a population of France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. This bloc has since grown, now encompassing a population of 400 million people.
Damn.
And of those 400 million people, roughly
Bigger than the USA.
1.7 million cross an international border every day, responsible for billions of euros in trade every year.
Wow. I'm sorry, how many?
1 million cross an 400 million people. And of those 400 million people, roughly 1.7 million cross an international border every day.
0.5% of them. Every day.
Responsible for billions of euros in trade every year. Some people even wake up in one country and make breakfast in the other, especially in places like Barle-Nassau in the Netherlands and Barle-Hertog in Belgium.
And with Luxembourg, you know, I know people be going in and out of Luxembourg like none other, like people go in and out of your.
Normally, such a scenario would be a complete mess, but in the Schengen area, things like these are kind of perfectly fine, which is nice because this area is also a pretty cool place to go to as a border-obsessed tourist. However, there is still some regulation within the Schengen area. While there will never be border checks for someone taking a train from Stettin to Berlin or their following flight to Madrid, police can still ask them for identification at different points.
Ryanair, I like that airline. They don't really fly that here. They don't fly that here at all in America. But I've seen it. I mean, they fly it in and out, I guess, internationally.
Member nations are also allowed to reintroduce border checks temporarily along certain sections of their borders with other Schengen states, provided it's for an emergency. Currently, Austria, Denmark, Germany, Norway, and Sweden have temporarily reintroduced border checks in response to the European migrant crisis, and France due to persistent terror threats. However, not all of these have been due to an emergency, as Malta has done this in 2010 when Pope Benedict.
It's interesting how, like, it's only on certain borders. It's kind of confusing. Like, you know, like Germany can have one border be totally open and one not.
All of these have been due to an emergency, as Malta has done this in 2010 when Pope Benedict XVI came for a visit, and in 2015 for the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. And Estonia has also done so in 2014 when US President Barack Obama visited. Weirdly, some Schengen states actually have territories outside the Schengen area.
It brought me back to when we had a professional, diplomatic, impressive president here in America. It's been a long time.
Danish possessions of the Faroe Islands and Greenland, as well as Norway's visa-free Svalbard, and all of France's overseas territories are all exceptions to this rule. Though this doesn't mean you necessarily have to get your passport stamped when you fly from, say, Paris to Guadeloupe. However, these far-flung territories might not accept visas for their mainland counterparts, so always be sure to check the visa requirements before traveling. Granted, that's kind of good advice for anywhere, especially with bringing your passport. I realize that the previous point about external territories sometimes not requiring passport checks was a bit vague, but that's because it varies a lot. So, when in doubt, just bring your passport anyway.
Dude, it's fine if you're a little bit vague because there was so much information packed into this video already. I'm already a bit confused. So, you know, if you were vague, I didn't notice.
So yeah, that's basically one of my top pieces of travel advice. Always bring your passport if you're not 100% sure you won't need it.
That's good advice. That was certainly a lot of information, and that was interesting. Thank you for watching, guys. See you guys tomorrow. Bye.